Bro, the uninhabited island exam has finally reached its climax, and what we just witnessed is absolute cinema. We've spent weeks watching these kids literally starve, pushed to the absolute brink of dehydration, paranoia, total exhaustion, but if you only paid attention to the surface-level punches thrown and the rank changes, you completely missed the massive White Room secrets hiding in plain sight this whole time. The real battles here, they were entirely psychological. We're going to break down the betrayals, the hidden truths, and the crazy emotional transformations that just fundamentally change the entire trajectory of this story.
Because let's be real, this is the biggest question everyone is asking right now. We get this insane force showdown. Ayanokoji is backed into a corner by the literal acting director of the school, Tsukishiro, and Shiba. The stakes have never been higher. Ayanokoji's expulsion is literally on the line, and yet the fight ends with Tsukishiro just conceding. The clock runs out and he basically just walks away. Wait, did he actually let Ayanokoji win? To understand why this happened, we need to go back.
To actually grasp how we got to that insane ending, we have to look at the Vanguard. We need to talk about Amasawa Ichika's role in systematically trying to isolate Ayanokoji in that forest. She was acting as the ultimate gatekeeper, making sure absolutely no one could interfere with Tsukishiro's execution squad, and she did it by taking on two of our heaviest hitters head-on.
Just look at the pure stat check happening right in front of us. We've got Horikita with 131 points and Ibuki with 145 points. And think about what this moment actually cost them emotionally. These two absolutely despise each other. Horikita wants everyone to think she's this untouchable, independent leader, and Ibuki absolutely refuses to rely on anyone. But the stakes are so high here that they actually swallow their pride. They pool their stamina, their combat sense, and just their sheer willpower into a desperate 2-on-1 stall tactic. They even agree to drop out if one gets incapacitated just to avoid a group penalty. It's an incredibly selfless play. But here's the thing. Despite throwing away their massive egos, they are completely outclassed. Amasawa isn't even breaking a sweat. She's a White Room genius just toying with them, dissecting every single move and laughing at their lack of synergy. They were absolutely cooked.
But wait. Here is the detail that completely recontextualizes this entire fight. Most viewers totally miss this. Amasawa is standing there mocking Horikita, calling her stamina pathetic. But when the dust settles, look closer. Amasawa is bleeding. She is carrying massive, debilitating injuries from a prior battle before Horikita and Ibuki even showed up. She casually admits she had a little fight with her seniors beforehand. Bro, she wasn't just stalling them to protect the acting director's plan. She was fighting for her life. She held off two of the strongest girls in the second year, dodging and striking with terrifying precision while already heavily damaged. That is horrifying. It perfectly shows just how unbridgeable the gap is between normal students and the monsters created by the White Room.
But the physical fight wasn't even the most important part of this scene. The real shift happening here is entirely internal for Horikita. Amasawa is just relentlessly taunting her, asking what she actually even knows about Ayanokoji, and it forces Horikita to face a massive, terrifying emotional truth.
Look at this quote. "I want to keep knowing him until we graduate, as a classmate, as a friend." No way! Think about where Horikita started in Season 1. She was completely self-serving. Ayanokoji was nothing but a tool to reach Class A. She wanted everyone to think she didn't need a single person. But what she actually feels right now is complete vulnerability. She realizes she's entirely in the dark. She knows nothing about his true depths, his dark past, or why he hides his genius. And instead of demanding answers or trying to manipulate him, she completely drops her walls. She just desperately wants to understand him. She wants to be someone strong enough to actually stand by him.
Okay, so the crucial takeaway here is this huge shift in her motivation. It goes from cold self-preservation to this genuine, messy loyalty. Amasawa laughs right in her face, telling her Ayanokoji would never rely on her. And Horikita actually accepts that. She says, at least for now, but in the future it will be different. This realization completely shatters Amasawa's cynicism. Think about what this means going forward. Horikita is no longer just using him as a shield. Her entire trajectory now is about growing into a leader who can finally stand as Ayanokoji's equal. She is actively choosing to bear his burdens.
And speaking of needing a shield, we have to jump over to the real battlefield. Deep in the designated area, Ayanokoji is finally cornered. It's acting director Tsukishiro and Shiba against him. Two grown men who are essentially highly trained assassins against one high schooler. Tsukishiro even drops a GPS jammer. He wants to beat Ayanokoji into submission in a total dead zone and force a violent expulsion. The tension in this sequence is absolutely suffocating.
But then,
The midpoint shift hits, and it is glorious. Kiryuin steps out of the shadows. Bro, when she stepped out, I literally jumped out of my chair. We were all screaming. She completely ruins Tsukishiro's isolation tactic. She takes on Shiba, even though she openly admits she's never actually punched anyone before in her entire life. She flips this brutal 2-on-1 execution into a 2-on-2 survival match. And this brilliantly shows why Ayanokoji is so terrifyingly dangerous. He isn't just relying on his White Room combat skills, he is finally using his environment and the unique allies he's passively gathered over the past year.
But Ayanokoji didn't just rely on Kiryuin throwing hands. I need you to slow down and break this insane 200 IQ playdown with me. Tsukishiro thinks he has all the time in the world because he jammed the GPS. He thinks he's the one pulling the strings, but Ayanokoji had already manipulated the entire board before the fight even started. Step 1. He reported the collapsed students from Class A and D nearby. Step 2. He anticipated that homeroom teachers, specifically Mishima-sensei, would be dispatched to rescue them because he knew that's exactly the protocol they followed in a previous incident. Step 3. He just had to stall the fight until Mishima physically showed up. Ayanokoji methodically put a hard time limit on an ambush that the acting director thought was completely off the grid. He weaponized the school's own safety protocols against the man running the school. That is absolutely cold.
Which brings us to the true climax of this fight. Because most viewers completely miss the reality of what just went down. Mishima-sensei arrives, the clock runs out, and Tsukishiro backs off. But Tsukishiro's defeat wasn't just Ayanokoji outsmarting him or simply outlasting him.
Ayanokoji straight up calls him out. He tells Tsukishiro, "You intentionally left a gap in your defense." He noticed an unnatural opening in Tsukishiro's attacks, a deliberate flaw in his martial arts. Just linger on the absurdity of this for a second. A grown man, an acting director sent by a terrifying, omnipotent institution, holding back against the high schooler. Tsukishiro low-key threw the fight. He forced the time limit to expire without landing a decisive, lethal blow, even though he claimed he wanted to take Ayanokoji down physically. Why on earth would the man sent by the White Room to expel Ayanokoji intentionally hold back when he finally had him jammed off the grid and cornered?
Tsukishiro gives us the answer himself, and it is chilling. The one who disobeys orders is branded a failure. Stay at this school or leave as you please. Please show us your struggle to the very end. Bro, this wasn't an execution at all. This was a message. Tsukishiro was passing on a cryptic warning directly from the White Room. He wanted to test Ayanokoji's resolve, to see if the masterpiece was really willing to bleed, to truly put his life on the line, just to stay in this ordinary high school. Tsukishiro didn't fail his mission. His mission was never to forcefully drag him out today. It was to deliver this terrifying ultimatum and measure his psychological state.
So, the battle in the forest ends, Mishima secures the area, and the school gathers together. The unbearable tension of the island is finally released, but the dark reality of the exam's toll sets in almost immediately.
15. That is the number of students who were mercilessly expelled. The bottom 5 groups were announced. Everyone thought Nagumo Miyabi was going to use his massive point reserves to rescue people, to play the benevolent dictator and solidify his absolute control over the student body. He desperately wants everyone to think he's a god. But because he got knocked out earlier, no relief came. Nagumo failed. 15 students are just gone. It's a massive blow to Nagumo's reputation and a brutal stakes reminder of the world we are operating in. If you fall behind in this school, you are cut. Period.
But then we get the top 3 rankings, and I completely lost my mind. Third place, Sakayanagi Arasu's group with 261 points. Second place, Nagumo Miyabi with 325 points. But first place? Koenji Rokusuke, 327 points. Are you kidding me? Koenji took first place entirely solo, while massive alliances were forming. While Nagumo controlled half the school in an insane game of 4D chess, Koenji just unga-bunga'd his way through the forest on pure physical dominance and secured first place for Class D. The contrast is hilarious. It is absolute cinema. He proved he is exactly the unstoppable monster he always claimed to be.
And because of Koenji's insane solo carry, the victories for Horikita's class are huge. Think about how satisfying this is to watch. After weeks of starvation, suffering, and nearly breaking apart, Class D escapes the bottom rank once again. They secure a massive influx of private points. And as they sit around eating their final meals on the cruise ship, class morale is at an absolute all-time high. Their collective suffering actually paid off. They are finally looking up at Class B and making real, undeniable progress.
But as the rest of the class celebrates, the shadows are already moving. We have to look at the future implications here, because the conversations that happen in the aftermath of this exam guarantee us incredible chaos moving forward.
First off, Ryuen approaches Ayanokoji. Remember, Ayanokoji used Ryuen as a mercenary during the exam, promising him one favor in return, and Ryuen cashes it in right here. He demands a true, one-on-one battle against Ayanokoji with 0 interruptions in the near future. Ryuen wants everyone to think he's absolutely fearless, but deep down he respects and low-key fears Ayanokoji's absolute dominance. He needs this fight to prove to himself that the monster can be bled. And Ayanokoji accepts! With a year and a half of school left, both Ryuen and Sakiyanagai have firmly locked their crosshairs on our boy. The hype for these upcoming, totally unhinged shoujons is unreal.
And yet, how does the breakdown actually land its emotional weight? We contrast the class's sheer joy, Horikita's newfound loyalty, and all these upcoming rivalries with Ayanokoji's cold, internal reality. He looks around at his celebrating classmates, people who are laughing and genuinely starting to care about him, and he just thinks to himself, nothing changes, nothing at all. We really have to slow down here, because this is the tragic core of his character. He survived the White Room's trap, he secured a massive victory, but his fundamental emptiness remains completely untouched. He wants to experience humanity, but he is still viewing all of this warmth and joy from behind a thick, unbreakable pane of glass. He is completely isolated from the very victory he engineered. The cost of this realization is immense. Normal life might never actually cure him.
Which leaves us with the biggest unresolved thread. Tsukishiro is stepping back, but the White Room operates on a completely different level of psychological warfare. If the one who disobeys orders is branded a failure, what is the White Room's actual next move against their masterpiece now that they know he won't leave quietly? Are they going to send someone even worse than Amasawa? Drop your theories below. Subscribe to Zero Anime, and I'll see you in the next one.